Alright, well, welcome to the first bloody installment of... Oh, I haven't figured out what we're going to call this yet. What?
The Damper
The Damper...
podcast.
Oh, that's right.
It was something like
The
that.
Dampercast.
Yeah, that's it.
Something along those lines. You'll see it on the f***ing title or whatever.
Hopefully.
Oh, I swore in the first minute. Well, that's good. Anyway.
There's a lot of editing to be
There's
done.
a lot of editing to be done already. Okay, well, with that very professional beginning, welcome to this new project. We're trying to fit into the what we see as a bit of a niche in the Australian landscape in terms of commentary.
Yeah.
So I suppose I should start off with a little intro about myself. We were talking about pseudonyms and stuff. I'm just going to go. My name's Jack. Nice to meet you. I come from the south coast, New South Wales, and then moved to Melbourne to finish my education and stuff, and then lived up in Cairns for a bit. So I've been all over. Lived in Canberra recently. Education, did a undergraduate degree in genetics, and then now I'm doing a master of teaching. So yeah, a bit of. I think I'm pretty varied as a human. I like to think, but I who knows? Who knows? Who's to say? And what got us into politics was, I just saw, what got me into politics. I don't know about Pat, but just watching Australia turn into a fucking cesspit was what got me into politics. And then eventually just seeing it just continually get worse and worse kind of pushed me further and further to more radical positions. So that's me, especially this year. Like COVID, real messed with my head. My situation was really bad.
Yeah, bro.
And watching all that unfold and how things were mismanaged just really, really was the nail in the coffin for me.
Good old ScoMo.
Oh, dude. I'm not a violent person, I don't think. But I would kick that man's teeth in. Anyway, over to you, Pat.
Yep. So, Pat, I met Jack when we were both 15 in high school, and we've been mates pretty much ever since. Before that, I was born in Melbourne. I lived a little bit in Adelaide, moved back to Melbourne after that. Dad moved us around a bit for his work. Went to public school until I hit high school, when my dad decided that he'd finally made enough money to send us and my two siblings to private school following me. I dropped out because I didn't value my parents. I didn't value their investment in my education.
Dad, I know you tried really hard, but honestly, get
Yeah, more or less. So I held down two jobs from when I was 17 till I was almost 20, and then I joined the army. I joined the army because I was real keen on trying to help people. I thought especially places like the Taliban in Afghanistan, where Australia has most of its overseas involvement, were pretty bad people. So I was like, yep, I'll go shoot some of them guys. I kind of got into politics, and that obviously altered that previous opinion when one of our mutual friends sort of pointed out a lot of my politics that were either like inconsistent within themselves or just flat out like anti-humanitarian, and I kind of got pushed into putting my politics against my morals that I hold, like as like a character thing, very within myself, and yeah, so I had to come to terms with the fact that I was more or less like big on people having individual freedom and everyone having the right to live the way that they want to, that sort of thing, and being free of persecution. So that's what ended up getting me into politics. COVID was an interesting time for me. In the army, I had already had my first child, so for me it was more or less like paid leave. Like, it was a second parental leave, really. It was pretty dope, I'm not going to lie. And I know that that's like a spicy take, because a lot of people got really hurt by COVID. And that totally sucks, but I got retribution for it, because I left the army and we moved back to Melbourne after living in Queensland, and the second wave hit, and then I was like, oh, this is actually really bad for most people. Like, this is not fun.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no, COVID was terrible for everybody, and I'm sure we'll revisit that at some point.
Yeah.
I'd say the biggest points of contention, like Australia-wise, I have, like the absolute disdain our political system has for the working class of this country. I think most people are kind of fooled into believing one of the two big parties is going to represent their interests the best. And I think that's terrible. Like, most people, I think if you approached on the street and you were like, hey man, this policy would better your lives, they'll either outright disagree with you because they've been thrown through the media like ridiculousness, or they'll agree with you and then try to say, yeah, but these people do that, and they're more or less entirely misinformed, and that's because Australians aren't very involved in politics in general.
No. I mean, there's a lot of analysis about that in our social demographics, but that's a topic for another time, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what are the policies or ideas that you push for the hardest, mate? Like,
on
the spot.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure. Mask off. I think states are in general like a bad concept, and that's a very like radical take. I know that a lot of people are very familiar and comfortable with the idea of living in a nation state, and I would just put forward that for almost all of human history, that's not how people have lived. And I'm not trying to say that a return to tribalism is a good idea. I just think that we've progressed past the point where we need to identify ourselves with, like,
a nation.
Like the geography that you originate from. Like,
yeah.
I think people are people, and they're smarter than that. And I also think that the decommodification of the economy, so that's where you make something for it to be sold, rather than just making something because either you want to make it or someone needs it.
Yeah.
Needs to happen.
I mean, that's why we throw 40% of the food we produce in the bin.
Well, that's it, yeah. People aren't, like, making food because they're just chill with the idea of making food at current point. They're making food because it's a profitable thing to do. And it's profitable because they're exploiting something or somebody. So yeah, the decommodification of...
Decommodification.
Sorry, yeah, decommodification of that sort of stuff.
You'll soon find out I'm an asshole.
And the democratization of as much of society as possible. I think everybody deserves to have a say in everything that affects their lives.
And I think that links nicely with kind of, as opposed to Pat, my main point of contention is a little bit more focused on... Like, I think I agree with Pat on his points of contention, but I think they're probably further down the track than Pat would like to think.
Oh, no, for sure.
Yeah. But I really focusing on the here and now in my position in teaching and other things in my ability to influence stuff. Definitely like the idea of democratizing the workplace, because like then people get familiar with the ideas that things can be more democratic and function better, and then maybe they'll be on board with more radical changes later. But I don't think you can, in the current Australian circumstances, do much.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like the material situation we find ourselves in is not going to be conducive to like violent revolution. Yeah, it's not.
If we did, we'd end up with a Stalin.
That's or a Hitler.
Yeah.
You know, like ScoMo, but on like actual good governing ability.
ScoMo on like has any testosterone.
Yeah, the unsoy boy
instead
version.
Instead of I made a curry for Jen and the kids, it's I just mixed this immigrant's brain. What are you going to do about it?
Yeah. Oh, I tried to scull a beer and failed. When it's like, I fucking ate an entire keg for breakfast. Come fight me. That's his Twitter post. Yeah. I'll take any of yous on.
Yeah. Come try to usurp me. I'll cave your brain in. I'll fucking dome you.
I've got bloody Mitchell Johnson's cricket bat.
It's signed.
He likes me because I gave him more money. Yeah. No, that's it.
I'll cover your dead eyes with a bag of green.
So,
well, the first topic, I think Pat had a real... Because you might be seeing our logo on the screen right now that we put together.
For sure, yeah.
And I think Pat wants to talk about that before any of you go, these people are Nazis!
Yeah, so at least if you're an Australian, you're probably familiar, especially if you're a Victorian, with the Eureka Stockade flag. The Eureka Stockade flag, for those who don't know, it was a flag that a rebellious group, not necessarily a revolutionary group, put up in the face of like a tyrannical government system. And this was before Australia was even founded, so as like a brief layman's history of what happened during the 1800s, Australia had a huge gold rush, more or less focused in Victoria and around the Sovereign Hill area. And in this area, a ton of immigrants came in to try and make their way in the world, find a bunch of gold and get rich. A lot of these people were multicultural. I think that's fair to say. Like, I think less than a plurality of people were white, to be honest. I think it was...
Yeah, I don't know, but I mean, I could be ill-informed, but my understanding of the goldfields was they were very racist, so I don't know that the people in this stockade itself were of anything other than a European descent.
So, regardless of that, more or less what happened was these people who were mining had to pay like these ridiculous payments on getting a permit to be able to mine for gold, and paying all these taxes and everything on what they did. They lived in like around the areas where you would pan for gold, obviously, and the government controlled those areas. It was government land, so they had to pay all these ridiculous like prices just to set up a tent, essentially. And most of these people had to bring their families with them, because that's just like you have to feed your family. You can't, back before internet banking, you couldn't send your family wages. So it was a huge thriving community in Sovereign Hill, but very poor. And there was a local inn near the joint, and so while all these tensions were rising between the working class and the governing class, a murder happened with the inn. I'm related to the inn owner who allegedly murdered this guy. My grandfather will attest that no murder ever took place. It was all self-defense, but at the end of the day, a bloke turned up dead with a shovel ingrained in his fucking skull, so...
He just tripped.
Yeah, so I reckon it's pretty fair to say someone was at least killed.
Yeah.
His mate ran back to...
That's hearsay.
Yeah. His mate ran back to the goldfields, told all the miners, and then the innkeep... he got sort of sheltered by the governor, who was mates with him. They had a trial that was more or less a sham, where he was declared innocent, and so the inn was set on fire, which followed a police crackdown, and by police we mean the Redcoats, because this wasn't Australia, it was still a British colony.
That's where the police come from.
Well, so the Redcoats show up, they crack down on these people, and shortly following that, the miners decided enough was enough, and they were going to stand in revolt against the government system. So they erected the Eureka Stockade, which was like essentially a bunch of blokes on top of a hill with some spikes in a sort of outward fashion. They tried to arm themselves as best they could, defend themselves as best they could, but the British army showed up and massacred them. No British soldiers were killed as a result of the fighting. More than, I believe, 200 miners were killed.
Citation needed.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll leave something in the show notes. But yeah, so it was a big workers' movement. And nowadays, if you travel around, especially in Victoria, you'll see people who fly the Eureka Stockade flag as like this ultra-nationalist thing, where they've read what's happened as like Australia's first sort of a go for independence, almost, when really it wasn't independence from the British Crown. It was just like, hey, we need money.
Please let me live.
And when people get murdered, don't police us extra heavily. So the way that I read the Eureka Revolution, or Stockade, whatever you want to call it, is a bunch of workers who were finally fed up with the ridiculous levies that were placed on them by the bourgeoisie, rose up and were massacred for it. And so, for that reason, I believe that the Eureka Stockade and the Eureka Stockade flag is a symbolism of leftism and of standing up for workers' rights.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be inclined to agree. I mean, I didn't do my primary schooling in Victoria, which is kind of when you cover most of it, I think. So,
yeah.
I mean, Pat's definitely put a convincing case, but I'm sure that'll be a spicy one to start some debate.
I'm sure we'll hear back.
Yeah. If anyone listens,
maybe we'll have someone on in the future. Like, if you disagree with me, please feel free to let me know.
Yeah, because we could be wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
I'm open to being wrong.
Yeah.
If you give me evidence to show me that I'm wrong.
Yeah. I mean, I guess the counter argument would be that, as I said before, the European settlers in the goldfields were typically pretty racist. But then I would also suggest that, like, fucking everyone from Europe back then was horrible and racist, or most. I mean, like, early socialist thinkers were racist.
I think it would be fair to say that pretty much everyone from 200 years ago was...
That's not necessarily a good point.
I'm not trying to advocate for racism.
No. But nobody who seriously believes in, like, Marxist theory supports racism
Oh.
unless you're a fucking Nazbol. Unless you're
Yeah. So
look at you, Caleb Malpin. You can fucking off.
Fucking MLs. Look, if you're a tanky, legit, less hate against you than actual fascists.
Yeah.
But I think.
But also, the CCP is not that great, dude. You need to get off the drugs.
You do need to rework where your priorities lay vis-a-vis, like, dictatorship. When Marx wrote about the dictatorship of the proletariat, he didn't mean it in the sense that we mean it today. Okay?
He meant that they dictate things, not
Yeah.
not
that one dude fucking runs the country and gets mad if you call him Winnie the Pooh, alright? Literally fucking puts you in prison.
I forgot about the Winnie the Pooh meme.
Oh, Xi Jinping is Winnie the Pooh. Spread the truth. It's a deep state conspiracy.
He just wants honey.
He just wants the honey.
The Uyghurs, they were hoarding honey.
They're the piglets of the world.
We shouldn't be saying that. We'll get cancelled.
Fucking Eeyore over there. It's just America, like Trump going, oh, don't do that.
Eeyore.
A fuckwit.
Oh my god. So many beeps. Oh man, what do we want to do?
Do you want to do a segment? Why don't we start with a topic?
A topic? Yeah, let's go find a topic. Sorry guys, we can edit this out.
We probably will.
We probably will. You'll never hear this.
I hate all of you.
I don't even know who you are, and you make me sick.
I still love you though.
You know what? This is good. Let's just read this.
Okay, we're going to read an article live to you with a very poor internet connection.
Give me that shit. Okay, let me read it to Pat, and because I've read it before.
You've read it before?
Yeah, and I just want to see how Pat reacts to this bullshit.
Alright, Sue Williams has...
Sue Williams has a real hot take, and by hot take, I mean hot garbage.
The title is How a New Model of Renting Could Change Tenants' Lives for the Better. I'm on board. I'm pro-tenant.
I said I was reading.
Oh,
You're
but
going to listen.
that's the title.
You're going to listen.
It's in bold.
You're going to listen. Okay. There's the smell of freshly made coffee and baking cookies wafting through the doorway of a building with apartments to rent inside.
Oh my god, yeah.
A woman comes out to welcome those of us waiting to inspect them, does the COVID checks, and then whisks us all off on a complete tour of the various apartments and their different floor plates and views. There are stops along the way at the communal gyms, dining room, library, theatre, co-working room, kiddies playroom.
Holy shit, can we skip to the bit where she proposes policy?
There's no policy, it's a Domain article, it's all fluff.
It's Domain? Oh god,
It's
so it's literally pro-landlord.
Yeah, okay, so that's Pat's first reaction. I told him who wrote it.
Domain, for those who don't know, is a real estate agency.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's why my caption was this fucking article, barf react.
Oh. Classic.
Anyway,
scroll past the bit where she's talking about
no, you got to set the
popcorn.
scene, Pat. Let me set the scene.
No.
Kiddies playroom and lounge, and just to keep up our strength, we're offered free Wi-Fi, raspberry, blueberry and coconut smoothies, salmon poke bowls, coffee, salted caramel tarts, and popcorn.
Fucking free all of that.
Yeah, but I also want to vomit because it's so bougie.
But free food?
Yeah.
That sounds
at the inspection.
That sounds very socialist to me. I'm on board.
No, at the inspection.
Okay.
Not all the time.
Okay.
An hour later, I am standing on another street, another Sydney suburb in the biting wind, waiting to inspect an individual rental apartment. But with this one, the doorbell doesn't work.
Oh, God.
And the agent's board outside doesn't offer a phone number.
Oh, God.
After a 15-minute wait, I finally give up and leave. Because, I have the luxury of deciding that I don't want this home.
Yeah. I'm not desperate enough to need shelter at any price.
It's a tale of two types of rentals in a country that until now has only offered one. One gives you free popcorn at the inspection. The other one, the doorbell doesn't work. This is socialism. But now competing against the traditional private landlord's apartment in a regular strata building is a new brand model. A developer offering private leases on apartments in Australia's first purpose-built rental blocks that cut out the agents and the owners corporation. And, with an inspection open day conducted in a flurry of food, friendliness and fabulous amenities, it's hoped that it might even help lift the game for those renting from investor owners. I want your take on that bit.
Okay, so without literally any other context, because all of it up until now has just been, I had food, I went to a house.
Sue Williams is vapid.
Oh, fuck. She went to a house and she's like, Yes, queen. Caramel popcorn. Anyway, so this fucking bitch walks into a house
You can
and...
say that. That's defamation.
Okay, good. So she walks into this house and she's like, oh, the real estate agent is, like, gonna give me free shit. That's pretty cool. Alright, yeah, sure. And you walk up to the next house and it's, like, a total piece of garbage. Yeah, if you have the ability to not apply for that, you probably don't apply for that one, you know? You
probably apply
for
for
sure.
the popcorn one.
You probably do, you know? Like, hopefully you actually inspected the rest of the house and didn't spend your entire time just being like, oh my god.
I love the vibe.
Like...
Way to spike the mic. Look at the recording.
So you would hope that that's her actual fucking hot take. But then she walks in and she's like, but now, competing against the traditional private landlord's apartment in a regular strata building is a brand new model. A developer offering private leases?
So basically this building is constructed...
No. My confusion is deliberate. It's sarcastic.
Oh, I see.
Because at the end of the day...
We've had too many beers, I can't read.
Okay, yeah, so...
Rude.
Jack is autistic. So at this point...
Dude, we said two things that are going to get us cancelled, like, straight up.
Okay, but I am neuroatypical, so I'm allowed to use that word. I'm not autistic, but I'm going to claim that I can use that word. No, to anyone who's autistic, we actually don't devalue your opinion. We love you. We have autistic friends, and they're the greatest.
That's not a good...
That's a terrible argument, but I do mean,
you
like,
should not
this
say that.
With all sincerity, like, we harbour no resentment towards autistic people. We just think that this person's, like, actually a fuckwit.
Yeah.
That's
they call them a fuckwit. That's
okay,
what
yeah, we'll roll with that.
They're perfectly neuro-capable. They just are...
Probably.
Well, look, not really, because because they think this is good.
Very smooth brain. So this smooth brain lady... She's like, oh, so competing against private landlords is private landlords.
No, but these private landlords had enough money to be a property developer and built an entire apartment building that they're just going to directly rent rather than sell.
Oh, so, let me get this right. So a landlord, right, or a collection of landlords stratified into a, like, corporation...
To develop property.
That is built around, being a landlord. To further, like... shove wealth into the pockets of the 1%.
No, it's different though. This one gives you popcorn.
No, but this one, right?
And kitty rooms.
Instead of building, like, one building in, like, a fucking development area, has been like, oh, let's build an entire fucking apartment complex and rent the whole thing out. Yeah. But to entice people into the shithole lifestyle we've built for them in Legoland, we're gonna give them popcorn? This isn't a competing model. This is the exact same model that they've already been peddling to us for ages. Like, look...
They're just... The rest of it's all about, oh, it's a lifestyle choice and all this, like, real bougie shit.
Okay.
But what I found later, and look, again, citation needed, but the rent on these apartments... Oh, no, it's actually in here. The apartments aren't cheap, however. Starting at $535 a week for a one-beddy, and then $615 for a two-beddy, and $1,000 for a three-beddy. Between 10% and 30% more than private rentals in the same area. So, who has the luxury of affording this?
So they're more expensive. Okay, yeah. just for reference.
Because you get a playroom, dude.
Oh.
You get a kiddie playroom.
For reference, I'm currently living in, like, the outer suburbs of Melbourne. I'm paying $430 a week for a 4-bedroom house. Four-bedroom house. $430 a week is still ridiculous. That is still way too much. And these people are asking $1,000 for less than what I have.
For an apartment.
For less than what I have.
Yeah, an apartment with 3 bedrooms, yeah.
And she's lauding that as, oh, they had popcorn.
It's a competitive model, Pat.
Oh, for sure.
This is a lifestyle choice. People rent... She says this earlier in the article. Renting is a lifestyle choice.
Oh, 100%. Because you don't want to own, like, equity.
Nah.
You just want to throw money into a black hole.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna have to just quickly address the inevitable straw man that's gonna come out of this. We are not saying that, oh, popcorn makes it worth, like, that much more money. Or even that the absence of popcorn means that it's, like, an invaluable property. Alright?
If there was no popcorn, this property would be dog shit!
I didn't get popcorn.
I received no popcorn.
Cancel landlords. No, our contention is that humans require shelter.
Pat, I came to your house to stay the night. You didn't give me popcorn.
I didn't.
I'm going to burn
gave
it
you
down.
Chips, dinner, and beer.
It's not enough. There's no popcorn.
Not enough beer.
There's no berry and coconut smoothies.
Okay, that's fair enough. I didn't make you a smoothie. Ask Bailey in the morning. But no.
I'm not getting up that early. What's wrong with you?
Disgusting. So no, our contention is that humans require shelter as a basic need as much as they require food and water.
Hey, look, a 61-year-old can't afford it.
Oh, fuck, who saw that coming? Anyway, so people who don't work for a living can't afford fucking money. Oh, shit. Anyway, so, yeah, no, that isn't what we're trying to argue.
This is the opposite. This one-bedroom apartment that just looks like fine. Like, perfectly serviceable if you're by yourself. Like, that's better than what I've got currently. And it's that's for rent for $90 less than the one... Like, what? I don't understand her point. This article, I'm dead set this was paid for by the developer.
We will link it.
Yeah, I'm dead set, like, this has to have been paid for by the developer because she just fucking gushes about this development and then just completely shits on, like, what ostensibly would just be a normal apartment that most people would be happy to live in.
Yeah, listen to the weighted, like, emotional language she uses.
I wait outside and then trudge around the small, dingy, unrenovated interior that didn't have popcorn. I inserted that. Looking out at brick walls and feeling depressed. But, you know, if I go into my apartment building with a yoga studio, I just calm instantly.
Like, most of these apartment complexes that she's, like, going around with subpar real estate managers probably have the regular... There's a gym included, there's a pool as well. You know, if you pay enough, like, if you meet a price point, you're gonna have those amenities.
Yeah.
And, like...
Yeah, given that this is $90 less than... What did they say?
$615.
For a one-beddy?
For a one-beddy, yeah.
What the fuck? That's still gonna be so good.
$615. $535
That's still gonna be so good. Like,
right?
For a one-beddy, you're paying what?
You're going to be in the CBD.
Yeah,
you're going to have the amenities.
It's got wood. It's got actual wood floors. Like this.
I don't have wood floors.
Right. Everywhere has shitty laminate these days. Like, this place ain't that bad, but she's just dunking on it for no reason.
Consider the fact that it was also purpose-built to rent. Every apartment
also,
building...
she mentions the developer of the building specifically, Mervac.
Oh, by name.
By name. This is definitely... There's a conflict of interest here that isn't declared.
So, I mean, that was kind of obvious from the get-go. What with a real estate agency peddling a certain apartment complex.
Yeah, domain's been paid off. Prove me wrong.
But, like, if you're living in the CBD of Sydney and the rent is that high... Regardless of where you go, you have to start asking questions.
Yeah, why is it that high?
Right? So,
I have to pay. I have to work the shitty. I have to live in the CBD to work the job that I need to pay the rent to live in the CBD.
There's a classic quote from an amazing Australian punk band that I love, the Smith Street Band, and it is, "I go to work to get the money." I can't remember the quote. I go to work.
Wow, inspirational.
I go to work. I spend my money on a place that lets me live closer to my job. So what's all this chest beating and fist pumping about, right? Yeah. Like, you go to work to pay for the thing that allows you to live close enough to the job that you need to pay to be there.
Yeah.
Right. So obviously this is like a secular thing. You need the job to be able to pay for the thing that you need to be able to be close enough to the job to make it worthwhile going there. Yeah. Right? So you're already in that scenario. To add to the fact that every single apartment complex building has been built purposely to rent. No one's ever built an apartment building other than a government to be like, oh yeah, we're not going to profit off this. You're not going to build a house with like a fuckload of rooms, right? Like,
you can't tell me the people who bought up all the apartments in the apartment building didn't immediately turn into rentals to make an income.
Exactly. People who buy apartments are very, very rarely planning to live in them.
No,
and
they buy them up because they're in the CBD where people need to live so they can work and feed off that cancerous cycle.
And that's it. So at the end of the day, right? Do you want to throw your money into a black hole? Right? But okay, this is another straw man that I can see coming inevitably. Oh, but rent pays for your maintenance, and therefore it's like... yeah. And therefore it's like comparable to owning a house.
Yeah, okay. Like, dude, the landlord, they don't make any money. All the money goes back into maintenance.
Yeah, so...
There is $450 a week of maintenance on my townhouse in Canberra.
And there's another argument that's like, oh, but they took risk in buying property. The safest investment ever.
Australian government is literally addicted to the property market. They will not let it burst.
That's it. So, like, A, it's the most risk-free investment you can ever do, right? B, it is a black hole of money, because maintenance cost is a tiny, infinitesimally small amount of the rent that you pay. Because if you build or buy a house, there are payments on your loan, which includes interest, right? Because the banks have to profit off of you having shelter.
Someone's got it, man.
Oh, someone.
Someone's got to profit off your basic human rights.
That's it. Is going to be less than what you pay for a comparable house in the same area.
Yeah. No, it always is. 100%. Like, there's all these bullshit, like... okay, so we should say this. We are not financial advisors. Please do not take this as financial advice. We will get sued into the ground if you do. We probably don't know what we're talking about. After that disclaimer, literally never do you need this fucking calculator to be, how does the rent compare to a mortgage? It's always less. Right? The rent's always more.
Because, and speaking as a child of people who are property owners and landlords...
Oh, dude, mine did that too. They just sucked at it.
Yeah. Most people do, but it doesn't matter, because even if you lower the rent on the property that you have... It should still be recording.
Anyway, continue.
Even if you lower
the rent on the property you have...
It'll still be less by, like, necessity than the repayments you're paying on it. Because almost every property owner, except for the ridiculously 1%, like 0.1%, right, is going to be
actual
able to...
statistic.
Is going to have... Yeah, that was bang on. Is going to have to be getting a mortgage out for, like, these homes, right?
Yeah,
and
but then I want to get money on top of my mortgage in my pocket.
That's it. So you have, like, if you're investing in property, you're not investing in property to be like, okay, I'm going to break even on the mortgage here. No, you're going to invest in property so that you're going to get more than what the mortgage repayments are.
I want an income stream, which means I don't have to work like the regular plebs.
Exactly. So, if you own this sort of stuff and you don't have to work, like, that's a whole thing. But if you're not making enough money to profit even slightly off of the rentals that you own, you're going to sell the house, aren't you? Because you're going to turn the debt that you have into equity. That's just a basic economic principle. Like, some people won't, because some people are dumb, but most people are going to realize, oh, this is now either not making me money or costing me money, I'm going to sell it. And they're going to, like, hit the loss on that one sometimes. Because, you know, no investment is exactly perfect, but property is the most obvious, easy investment because it's a required basic need of human life.
Everyone gonna need shelter.
Exactly, right? So
not everyone's always gonna want a Nintendo Switch. I know that seems like a controversial point at the moment.
I already have one.
I don't.
Do you want to play mine later?
I will. I will just stare into Tom Nook's eyes. Only acceptable capitalist.
So we hit this point where people are investing in property, right?
Like Tom Nook.
And then requiring you to pay more than what the property is worth into a black hole because the maintenance fees that you would otherwise incur aren't like more than covered for by the rent that you pay, right? And so... not even to add to the fact that most of the time they will avoid everything they can possibly do to actually maintain the property.
This thing happened that was just like general wear, like that range hood. This range hood broke, and after 20 years, it comes out of your bond, buddy.
So they will do literally everything they can to scab you of money because at the end of the day, the real estate agent works on the behest of the landlord.
Well, it's
because
like
without them, they wouldn't have a job.
Yeah, and it's like when I bloody moved into my place in Canberra, the condition report said bamboo floors. I'm like, this is the shittest laminate I've ever seen. I literally on the condition report crossed out bamboo and wrote shit laminate and gave it back to them signed.
Yeah, good. Right?
I was like, don't lie to me.
So these people, they invest, they lie, and they do everything that they can to get as much money out of you as possible, right? Because I'm sure that this podcast isn't going to reach the uber wealthy or even necessarily the petite bourgeois. This is going to be a podcast, like, necessarily toward, like, the working class of Australia.
Australia! Oh, I'm not going to say the actual full...
Australia.
that... Don't fucking swear! God fucking damn it.
Anyway, so, like, these people want your money. You work hard. I know this because I currently work in a factory job. You work hard. Like, full-time hours, all day, every day. to just be able to pay for your rent, food, and like bills, and then you've got a tiny little bit left over to be like, alright, I can go to the pub with my mates every couple of weeks, whatever it is, and actually enjoy your life for what, 3 hours a fortnight, if that. And these people are siphoning your paycheck.
Yo, that's living, my dude.
This is a tax on the working class, not perpetrated by the government, but perpetrated by the people with wealth enough to buy property and then make you pay for it. Dude. What?
If we just like didn't have a government and just let the free market decide, it'd be sweet, hey?
Oh no, you did a like real smooth brain thing there.
The government just makes free market bad.
You remember what happened when like the Industrial Revolution rolled around? There was no regulations based on whether or not people could like do certain things.
Yeah, we lived in a utopia, and then the government.
The utopia of like 6-year-old chimney sweeps who died of black lung.
Hey, they chose to do that.
Oh yeah, no, they weren't coerced under the fact that if they didn't work, their parents would die of starvation.
Dude, choose better parents, really.
Oh. Fair enough. You've got me there. Be born to other people. Look,
if your parents kick the bucket, maybe some rich noble will adopt you. Bam, free market, baby.
Oh yeah. It's just like natural selection, but not at all.
Except, no, social Darwinism. We'll talk about that another time with my background in genetics and how it's just crap.
It's just so bad. Okay,
did you have a topic for me?
I think we have time for one more.
Okay, cool. Because I was like, I gave you one, so maybe you can give me one.
I'm going to give you one that's maybe that we have a bit of a disagreement on, because I think it would be interesting. That is gun control.
Oh, yeah.
So,
no, this is a good one.
Just to catch people up who aren't, like, domestic, Australia had, like, a massive shooting in...
Port Arthur. Port Arthur Massacre, 1997, I want to say.
Somewhere around, yeah, I think so. John Howard basically said, no more guns. And we were all like...
you just quoted Jim Jeffries.
Yeah, I was about to say...
No more guns!
If you've seen the Jim Jeffries thing, like, you know what we're talking about. Yeah. Australia had one big shooting and we're like, no more guns, and then everyone was like, yeah, right. We all gave our guns away, right? So, Australia...
Well, unless you need them for, like, farming.
There are reasons...
There's still rifle clubs, you get a lot. Anyway.
Yeah, so... To clarify, you can have pistol clubs, you can have, like, there are certain licenses, you can get guns in certain ways in Australia, but it's very heavily restricted. And so I wanted to just ask you, what's your position on gun control? Should this be kept the way it is, made harsher, released, what?
I think the way that it is working fine in terms of not having kiddies shot by fuckheads, and I think that's a good thing and not something we should deregulate, because I've been thinking about this a bit recently, and if you were ever to think about, like, revolutionary action, I don't know that gun control really stops you, because, you can still, even though it's heavily regulated, if you can prove, for whatever reason, that you need a gun, and you're a gun enthusiast, and you're a member of your gun club, and you have a license, you can have a gun. You just need to keep it in a safe and have your ammo in a different safe. But if you're planning some kind of fucking revolutionary action, you'll have time to go to your safe, unlock it, get the gun out, go to the ammo safe, unlock that, get the ammo out, and then, Bob's your uncle. So I don't know that gun control actually impedes any kind of social uprising, if that were to ever occur. But in the more day-to-day, present-day stuff, it does seem to have had an effect on, mass shootings. I mean, you can see in America they're crazy. That one Australian bloke went over to New Zealand where I think they have weaker gun control, and he let rip on a mosque. So I think there is a fairly proven case for gun control being good for, like, stopping right-wing nutcases from just massacring children, but it doesn't necessarily stop if you were to ever take revolutionary action. I don't think it really impedes that much, because you can still have a gun, and as I said, revolutionary action is not spontaneous, so you can go to your safe and get it out.
So, on the issue of gun control, I know Jack touched on, like, a whole wide range of things there. And I would simply posit that gun control, set up and perpetrated by the state and enforced through, obviously, the state apparatus being like police and the judiciary system, is the state maintaining a monopoly on violence. So, regardless of revolutionary intent, right? Like, a lot of right-leaning people are very pro-no gun control, like, very pro-gun. And I think in that respect, they have their heart more or less in the right place. Right-leaning people have a lot of things that I would disagree with, obviously, but for the most part, when it comes down to guns, they're more concerned with the fact, I think, overall, of the state maintaining a monopoly on violence. Whether or not they use those exact terms is up to them, and I'm not trying to ascribe a specific position to a generalization of people, but I think that it's a fair thing to say that most generally pro-gun people, at the root of why they are pro-gun, are either because it's fun to use guns, or because I feel that I need the capability to defend myself against someone with a gun. And those are both arguments for the state not having a monopoly on that violence. So, regardless, like I said, of revolutionary intent, I think, for example, you can't outlaw people having the ability to punch someone real good. You can't outlaw boxing, right? You can go anywhere in the country and learn really good techniques of how to kill someone, like, quickly, right? Not just efficiently, whatever, quickly. You can learn how to kill someone just by paying a gym membership, like MMA, whatever, and putting the time into that. You can, and I know this is a meme, become your own weapon, right? To an extent. Obviously, someone with a knife or a gun is going to have a one-up on you. You can buy a knife. I own a knife. Like, yeah, I was in the army, but I own my own privately bought knife. Just because I claimed it on tax, like, whatever, right? I have a one-up on most people I interact with in a day-to-day because of my training, but also because I have a knife, right? And, like, if I could more easily own a gun, 100% I would own a gun. I don't, trust random people in the street to be, like, able to go, oh yeah, I won't have to, put a lethal force towards you in a certain scenario to make you stop doing what you're doing. And I also don't trust that police know what they're doing all of the time either. I'm not going to say that I'm going to go out and, like, murder cops or some ridiculous thing, but I am saying that police make mistakes, and some of the time, when they make mistakes, it's lethal. And I don't think that the state should have a monopoly on that intent. And I think that people, as sort of a democratic ideology, have more say in what they are going to do with their lives than the state can.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there, and I've always been very uncomfortable with firearms. I don't like them, because I think the key difference is, and as you said, you can learn how to kill someone quickly with hand-to-hand. You can only do one person at a time, though. Like, guns definitely open the possibility of, like, the mosque in Christchurch, school shootings all the fucking time. You just let rip and kill, like, 10 people in a second. I don't think anyone should have that power. So, I don't think the state should have it either, but
the state does have it.
The state does have it, but I don't know that people having guns stops them from having it, if that makes sense. Because in my thinking, the only time that those two forces would clash is in a revolutionary action, in which case you're not giving a fuck about the law anyway, and so you get your gun out of your safe and take it on the street, despite open carry problems, but you just do it. And that, having regulated guns doesn't mean you don't have guns. It just means that you can't as easily, give them to a mentally unstable teenager and they go kill people who bullied them. Like, okay. I got bullied. You shouldn't have given me a gun when I was in that mental state.
So, I'm not advocating that within our current system that no gun control is a good idea. I think so. This is a big thing within, like, Marxist ideology and, like, his teachings and everything like that. That material circumstances surrounding, essentially your context, is very important, right? So, given our current circumstances, I think tomorrow, if we rolled back and said, you can just buy whatever, it's probably not a good idea. And we can see that more or less as a case study in the USA.
Yeah.
So what I would say is that build upon a society that does away with people like the Christchurch shooter as like he was already an anomaly, but he wouldn't have reached the conclusions that he did, and wouldn't have reached the extent of radicalization that he did, were he not exposed to the circumstances he was exposed to. He grew up in a predominantly white area and was like shoved through this alt-right pipeline, you know? And like, to a certain extent, that's impossible to like curtail, but I think the more diverse a society is, the less you're going to have people randomly shoot up mosques, for an example.
Oh, I would agree with that, but yeah, I think that I would 100% agree that eventually when you get to a society that marginalises we marginalise so many different people from all different walks of life at the moment because of the way we're set up. Eventually, sure, at one point when that's minimised and you got a diverse and accepting community and it's all about, you know, kind of a humanistic approach and all of that, yeah, maybe you could, you know, relax it a bit, or just deregulate it altogether. But yeah, I would agree. If the caveat is that we need to fix society first before loosening gun control, sure. But yeah, my point is that now, no.
I would also argue that a radical...
Also, I'm going to be a teacher. I don't really feel like getting fucking shot, please.
You're a coward.
The only man that can stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun.
But that is literally a truism. No. Think about it. Think about it for 1 second. Who stopped the Christchurch shooter?
I actually don't know.
Police in New Zealand, right?
Yeah.
Literally ever. Whoever gets in the way of a violent, bad person or person acting on bad principles is another violent person being good and acting on good principles, right? And I mean, that's more or less the premise I joined the army with. But it holds true whether or not the Australian Army does bad things, which it unequivocally does. At the end of the day, the only person to stop someone with a greater ability to use force than you, who is going to hurt you because of bad reasons, is to be able to hurt them as much or more.
Yeah, I don't have that. You're probably right. My soul doesn't vibe that. I don't like it.
So like, this relates to violence as a tool.
I believe in absolute minimum violence, like
in general.
In general,
yeah, I totally agree.
But I think we kind of probably disagree where the minimum threshold is.
Well, okay, that's an interesting point. I would say that police arresting a homeless person for being homeless is violent.
I don't know. Yeah, not getting into that. I mean, like in terms of like how you would change society. Like I would want to do it. Probably take longer to do it and more peacefully because I think that allows a more secure transition.
Yeah, so incrementalism is definitely something that a lot of lefties either hate or love. Yeah. It's not really like a grey area for a lot of... I mean, the internet makes it look like a black and white. It's probably more grey than what people give it most credit. But incrementalism is an important debate to have. There are a lot of proponents for incrementalism, and I'm not pretending that if we were to have a violent revolution tomorrow, that fascism wouldn't just take hold, right?
Yeah.
Like, just as a proportionality, like, of numbers, there are more, like, far-right people in this country than there are far-left. That's just a fact, and it kind of sucks, but it's true. And so I'm not advocating for, like, ridiculous violent revolutionism immediately, if necessarily at all. I think if you can achieve your goals peacefully, that should always be sought after first. But violence ultimately is a tool. I don't think violence, one way or the other, is morally good or bad, and I think that relates directly to giving people more guns. Like, if you're giving people the tools to be violent, that's not a moral or amoral thing. That's just increasing their capacity to affect themselves on the world. And I can see the argument, you don't want more Christchurch shootings. I totally agree, you don't want more Christchurch shootings. But that doesn't have to do with gun control. Because if that bloke wanted to do more of those shootings, he would have done what he did. He was an Australian citizen, he went to New Zealand because they have no gun control, and they shot up the area, right? Like, bad people, crazy people will find a way to, do the terrible things that they want to do, regardless of what you put on them as a society. And I think this is, you could make an argument that, his effect was increased by the fact that he had a higher ability and, to do violence, right? But I don't think that, curtailing everyone's ability to be violent in favor of a state monopoly on violence justifies that.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you've got a much more well-developed argument than I have, because for me it always comes back to that, as I said before, that guttural, just complete and utter disdain for it. And that I just, I think that, as we said earlier, you need to, these all come from societal problems, but I think that you should probably fix the societal problems first, such that people don't get radicalised like that as badly, and then look at the gun control when the risk is lower.
Can we do a quick hot spicy take segment, because I'm about to say something that's probably going to ruffle a few feathers.
That's a spicy meatball!
Including mine?
Probably.
Oh.
So specific to the Christchurch example, Islam is mostly, if you take its tenets seriously, a religion of peace. Like, most religions are pretty chill. They have some weird things that we probably won't get into, but this is more evident in the fact, I don't know who have seen the VOD of the GoPro footage of the shooter in Christchurch. Did you watch the...
I've only seen little bits of what was on the news. I didn't go and seek it out, no.
Okay, so I've watched the whole thing a bunch, because I'm weird and terrible and a bad person, but it more or less opens with him committing the shooting, at any rate. Opens with him walking towards a mosque, and the imam walks towards him, arms open, and says, "Hello, brother, how can I help you?" Right? Or akin to that. While he's already holding a shotgun in his face. This man knows that he's implicitly being threatened with lethal force. He's aware of that. And he's willing to approach that situation with, "Dude, I'm here for you." Right? It's not going to change anything. You can be as peaceful in a response as you want to be. And don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to say that he did the wrong thing there at all. What else was he going to do, for example? And, I actually think he is one of the most courageous people to ever have lived, to approach a man obviously wanting to kill him with, "Hello, brother," how amazing can you get? But if you tell people, "Oh, just be chill," you're not affecting the people who aren't.
That's not the extent of what I would think. That's not the extent of what I would propose. It's about, educative reform, systematic reform, where, like you said, he gets brought up in this environment, probably a lot of trauma there, gets down there...
No, he was in a middle-class white Australian family.
Really?
Yeah.
No trauma?
His parents wanted the death penalty for him because they had no idea how he got there.
Holy shit. Yeah, I don't know.
I can't speak to no trauma. That's pretty subjective.
How do you get there? I don't understand how you get to that point.
Well, that's another fun topic for a different episode.
True.
Stochastic terrorism is a very interesting topic that a fellow comrade Non-Compete has touched on in a bunch of ways. That's very interesting. But yeah, as far as I know, he had a pretty, chill childhood and everything. Very averagely Australian.
Yeah, right. Because, all the examples you hear from the States are not like that. The school shooters, generally it's, trauma-based or something like that. And so I would, from my perspective, not having known what you just told me, has always been, well, there's clearly some issues around marginalisation and mistreatment that you can sort out, and then that will minimise the amount of people that want to do that shit to their fellow human beings.
Yeah, totally agree, but that doesn't mean that the state should have a monopoly on violence, from my perspective.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I think if a bunch of cops walk up on a homeless dude and they try to arrest him for not having enough money to shelter himself,
Yeah.
he should be well within his right to fucking cap those guys.
Yeah, okay.
Whether or not it's, like, legal or whatever for the cops to arrest him in the first place for being homeless, like, there are arguments I'm sure we're going to get from the right of people being like, oh, no, homeless people commit more crime, blah, 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 so it's totally
Because they have to survive.
Look, there are a whole bunch of arguments to go into there, but whether or not it's justified for the cops to arrest him for being homeless in the first place, he should be able to defend himself, and he can't. In the current society, he can't.
Yeah.
Right? Because even if he's an MMA god and has 500 knives, he's just going to get shot.
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very sound example. I don't really have a counterpoint to that.
And a positive...
I mean, like, I have a story recently where one of my mates watched a chick get pepper sprayed in the face for getting annoyed that her friend got arrested, and that's chemical warfare. That's fucked.
And another reason for giving people a bigger capacity to do violent things is that their political interests, by necessity, will be more involved. Like, if you have the ability, in a small country such as ours, well, not geographically, but population-wise, in a small country such as ours, to fuck a lot of people up in a way really quickly, you will be heard more often. The implicit threat of violence, say, for example, if the CFMEU doesn't get its demands met, it's going to go out, strike and beat up a ton of cops, is a bigger deal to those who hold power than the current Australian cucked unions of like, oh, please give us more money. Like...
That's a topic for another time.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
But, like, my point is that people are going to take you more seriously if you can actually do them harm if your needs aren't met, right?
Yeah.
And I'm saying that, sure, gun control needs to be lessened, and the state, obviously, needs to be off, but it has to come along with these other things, like you've mentioned, like, education needs to be improved, people, blah, 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 you know, like, the social circumstances under which people currently live need to be moved gently towards the direction of, hey man, like, we just kind of don't care what you do, you're cool, like, just don't hurt other people for no reason, and then, boom, you know, like, for example, everyone loves who are pro-gun, and right, inconveniently, love to bring up Switzerland, who have, like, very lax gun laws, but they're a very left-leaning country.
Yeah.
So you don't hear about these ridiculous acts of violence, because...
they're accepting of their people. I mean, you can make an argument with Switzerland that they're fairly monocultural.
They very much are.
Yeah, so then it's a bit like social cohesion, at least historically, is a lot easier.
We won't touch on whether or not an ethno-state is more socially viable.
No, that's not what I'm proposing. I'm just saying, not at all, but I'm just saying, like, historically, the
in-group
I've had too many beers.
In-group biases make it easier. Yeah, no, humans are idiots, I agree.
Yeah.
But also, like, you know, there's no reason you couldn't replicate that in a migration-born country.
I don't know, I absolutely agree. I'm just saying it's like there are more steps we need to take with inclusion and diversity than you need to take in fucking Switzerland.
I would say you have to take those steps alongside with relaxing gun control, though.
Yeah, right. I think that's where we differ in opinion.
You want to wait until we
I want one to happen first. I want the people to... I know the argument that's coming that's like, but the capitalism won't let that happen.
I'm going to make it more nuanced than that and just say...
Sorry, I did make you sound like a dumbass then. I know
that's okay, you can straw man me. I would make it more nuanced and say that, do you think massive social reform, even if it's over decades, is actually going to happen if the people who are currently marginalised don't have enough political clout and therefore, by necessity, violent ability to be represented?
Yeah, I suppose I'm coming from my very narrow mindset where I'm like, of course you would want to do that, but I guess maybe more people than I think don't want that or don't care.
Well, considering we have a Liberal Parliament at the time being.
Yeah. I've written so many fucking reports on how they fucked this country up over the last 10 years.
Oh, education. A big one. We'll probably hit that next time.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm keen to get into the nuts and bolts, and Jack knows a lot about education now, going through being
Yeah,
taught.
I feel like this podcast I've sounded like a bit of a dum-dum.
I don't think so.
Okay, cool.
I think this is like gun control is like a new idea.
Yeah, I've not really thought about it that much.
And I
There's
think-
other things that I'm interested in.
I think growing up in Australia, like, correct me if I'm wrong, but have you ever held a gun in real
Yeah,
life?
I've fired an org steer, or however you say it.
Okay, yeah, in cadets for
Yeah.
high school, but outside of that,
Shotgun.
incredibly controlled environment. Okay,
Yeah.
so you're in like the very small percentage of Australian people who have ever held or seen a firearm in real life.
I don't like them.
That's fine. I didn't ask you to like them.
No, yeah, I've shot a double-barrel shotgun.
Okay.
And, like, I've done spearfishing and stuff. I've got a spear gun. But
Yeah, I mean that's a
Yeah.
firearm of sorts.
elastic band base.
Yeah, so not really
But, like, yeah, I just...
at all.
That's about as extreme as I get. I not a... Yeah, as I said before, not a violent person, and I find it a very difficult topic
Yeah.
to wrap my head around.
And that's totally okay, because the point I was making is that you're actually further along than most Australians are. Most people in our age group, like an overwhelming percentage of people in our age group, have grown up never seeing or touching a firearm.
Mm.
You know, that's the norm.
Whereas I've touched one and decided, no, not for me.
And yeah, but in my ideal society, you could do that.
Yeah.
Right.
No, okay, that's a good point. Yeah. That's probably the point that you've made that resonates with me the most this evening, is that I've had the luxury of being able to decide.
There are a lot of people who live not even 20 minutes down the road from us who don't have that luxury.
Yeah.
And there's an argument to be made that the only reason most people are pro-gun control in this country is because that's all they've ever known.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to downplay the fact that there are a lot of school shootings in America, but there are also a lot of countries with pretty chill gun reform that don't have that problem. And I think that conflating the two, like, when conservatives say, like, oh, you know, it's not guns that kill people, it's people that kill people, they're idiots for saying that. But they're also, like, kind of illustrating the point that it is a larger social issue where
Yeah.
people will go out and shoot up a school.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah.
It's not that guns exist.
Yeah.
Right? Because there are examples of people using other weapons aside from guns that are perfectly legal even here in Australia.
Oh, like in France, the fuck drag the guy out of the classroom for showing Muhammad and chop his head off with a machete.
Yep. There's I didn't need to be in the army to go buy the tactical knife that I have right now.
Yeah.
I could do a lot of damage with that thing. Without the training that I had, you give that to an unstable person, they could do a lot of damage. I totally agree with that. But I'm also saying that the unstable person shouldn't be disallowed from having their needs met. They should just have their needs met, and part of that is going to a place where their instability is met.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Oh, no, I'm definitely on board with that, as I said earlier.
Yeah. And so I think it would be fair to characterize your argument as, like, we reach the ideal society in every other respect and then allow everyone to have guns.
But I take your argument that that's a bit of a dream world.
Well, I mean, potentially. You know,
It depends.
it's
It depends
hypothetical.
on your social. I mean, it depends on your social demographics and what people want.
It's hypothetical, like...
Because I don't know how many me's there are, but like going into education, I want to celebrate diversity and have a rich cultural background in my classroom. Like,
For sure.
that's what I want.
I mean, it makes it more fun.
And everyone I know that's in teaching wants that.
You could
So,
have, like,
I don't know.
fun days where all the kids bring in, like, the traditional home food.
Oh,
And then
dude.
the best part would
Baba
be, like...
ganoush. Yum,
the,
yum.
the best part would be, like, the random white kid who's, like, doesn't know where they're from, and then they go
I
home.
brought a Bunnings sausage sizzle.
Fuck yeah. And then, like, the what, like, I used to be a swimming teacher,
Yeah.
right? And so every class that I had new kids, especially when I worked with public schools, I would open with, like, where's everyone from? And because I worked with public schools are overwhelmingly, like, more diverse than private schools because white people have all the money. But, like, these kids, you know... So the white kids very often wouldn't know where they're from unless they're first or second generation immigrants from somewhere in Europe, typically anyway. And so
hang on, can I just interject here? Second Fleet, baby.
good for you, you cuck.
I've destroyed this country.
You're a colonialist. No, so these kids would go home, and ask their parents, where is our family from? And they would come back to me the next day and they'd be like, oh, I'm Irish, oh, I'm English, blah, 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 like German, whatever, French, right? You could do that and be like, bring a croissant, motherfucker. Like, he's bringing, like, baba ganoush, whatever,
Don't you start the croissant debate.
I love croissants.
They're not French.
Oh, they're Austrian, I know. But, like, Germans could bring bratwurst. That would be sick. I love bratwurst. And then you could have, like, a little project where they all bring food.
See,
or, like, they all showcase a part of their language.
What if the kid brings a stein of Hefeweizen and I'm, like,
Aha.
drinking on the job?
That's... Look,
I'm going to have to confiscate that immediately.
Like, you can't trust the kids to not drink it during recess.
Also...
They'll sneak in and find it. You've got the fridge there under your desk. They know where it is. They know it's always got beer in it.
They know, I'm not going to say my surname. They know Mr. Jack, he's got his bloody pick-me-ups in the fridge.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
He doesn't use the lab fridge just for chemicals.
We know that Mr. Jack, he likes to drink we don't know what it is, but it makes him happy. It's
before
like
a demo, he always takes a big swig.
It's like a goldie, sometimes it's like a dark brown. It's always sparkling, like... He always goes, oh yeah, after he has like a big gulp.
Yeah.
That's the stuff. Like...
Oh no.
Sometimes it comes in different sorts of bottles. My
Yeah.
dad always drinks it because he works in the mines.
It seems to be the go juice for adults.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
They get sleepy sometimes.
If they have too much. I think we've talked for long enough this evening, or this morning, or this noon, whenever you happen to be listening to this.
Oh God, I hope it's not in Kentucky. I have family in Kentucky. Leave me alone.
Oh right, I thought you were going to say something different. I thought you were going to say, I hope you're not listening to this when you're doing something that should be between two people that love each other and not involving a podcast.
Oh, I'm definitely okay with that.
Pay attention to your significant other, damn it. Take the headphones out.
Workers of the world unite, and you're working when you make babies.
Oh God. Yeah, I guess technically you break a sweat.
Speaking as a father, having children is far more work than shoveling plastic.
Oh, I couldn't possibly comment.
No.
No.
You could, though. I'm not one of those idiots who's like, oh, having a child is like nothing else you've ever done. Dogs are harder. Until,
I mean, your dogs are harder.
I have a 1 and a bit-year-old, and my dogs are still harder. I'm sure I'll change my opinion when she's 14 and tells me that she hates me and to eat my own asshole. But
But then she'll be like, why aren't you cool like Uncle Jack?
Oh, probably.
I'm never cool. I'm not
Look,
cool.
I can't reach the heights that you've attained.
Just
coolness.
The sheer just whack shit
To
I've gotten up
sit
to.
in my fucking third bedroom and speak into a headset and like,
Oh, guys, we're so wicked.
we're gonna laugh until the world ends.
All right. See you later, guys. Thanks for joining us. If you did, you're first on the train, and we'll see you when this thing falls off the rails.
Oh no!
I think it already has helped me. All right.
We hope you all have a fantastic damper sesh. Cook it in tin foil on the fire. That's how you cook damper.
I did that. I didn't put it in tin foil though. I cooked it on a stick
You
and
just-
rotated it.
That's pretty cool. Put chopped chips in it and
I
banana,
did.
and it's pretty good.
I didn't put banana. I put chopped chips and rotated it on a stick.
You can put like little bits of fruit in there. It's pretty.
I didn't try that.
Yeah, well, that might be like a white people thing to do. It's
Maybe.
pretty yummy.
Oh no, there's fruit damper, but what do you mean a white people thing? White
know.
people, it's
I
not
learned
bush
how to
bread.
make damper from white people. I don't know.
Yeah, but
if
it was
it's been-
like a white settler thing. Like it's like there was bush bread, which is different, and that's indigenous people made that.
Oh, okay.
But damper is a white people thing.
Oh, so it's
already.
always been white.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Bush bread's different. Uses native seeds, and indigenous people actually did.
I'll have to try that one day.
Yeah, make bread,
Yeah.
but it's not damper.
Alright. Well, on that note, on misunderstanding
Important distinctions.
the
One's made from wheat flour, and the other one is made from like Banksia seeds and shit.
on misunderstanding the very basis on which our podcast is
Also,
named,
native millet. Also,
I'm just gonna like tap out.
ADD's kicking in full swing.
Oh, yeet.
Medication ran out 2 hours ago.
Oh, if that.
All right,
Coming to you live unmedicated.
live unmedicated shit.
Yeah.
All right. All right. See you guys later. Thanks for
Bye.
joining us. Bye.